Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. This is a story that just makes me laugh. So one day, I get an email titled, New Guitar Day Purchase, Joe Bonamassa 3 Pickup Epiphone Les Paul Custom. And I'm like, yeah, right, there's no way you can get those anymore. They sold out. They're on Reverb right now, selling anywhere between $1,000 to $1,500, despite only being $799 brand new. But I click on the guy's email, and he's like, hey, I saw these at Guitar Center. Can you get me one? It's like, all right, I'll look into it. And sure enough, you go to Guitar Center or Musician's Friend's website and you find out that, okay, they have them in stock for some reason. Now, you got to be careful with Guitar Center Musician's Friend. They're safe to buy from because they have a great reputation of, taking returns and stuff, but they also have a reputation of selling demo models, the floor models that are in Guitar Center. They'll sell them on Musician's Friend website as well as Guitar Center. And they'll still tell you they're new because they are, but they're technically, floor models, not 100% perfect condition. So I reached out to my Musician's Friend rep to see, is that what this is? Did somebody return it? Do they only have one? But he's like, no. Sure enough, they had it at the Musician's Friend's warehouse. So that means, yeah, for some reason they got another batch of these. I thought they were out of production. So this guy, while everybody else is paying double on Reverb, just scored himself a great deal. And finally, everybody and their brother's mother wanted me to review this guitar, but it just happened to evade me. But here we go. We get to review the Joe Bonamassa 58 Les Paul Custom. Let's go ahead and take a look at this thing. Oh yeah, I can see why people were wanting me to review this. But at the same time, it's kind of interesting. So let's talk about this today. This is a model based off of Joe Bonamassa's 1958 Gibson Les Paul Custom. There's a video of him playing them side by side. Some guys say the Epiphones even sound better than the vintage original. I mean, I'll leave that up to you. You can check out the video. But essentially, they were trying to reissue that guitar simply because, A, who doesn't want a really cool 3-pickup Black Beauty that is built to historic specs? Now, I mean, we don't have the ABR1 bridge, but you still have the mahogany top to this. That's what makes a Black Beauty a Black Beauty. 3 pickups with a mahogany top. But the most interesting, unique feature about this, besides, just being the historic spec and whatnot, are these tuners. They're really strange, I guess you could say. I always wanted to take a look at these. They are Epiphone tuners that occasionally would be used on a Gibson guitar at that point in time, because that's right around the time the Epiphone got bought out by Gibson, so they're probably just trying to use up parts, and you'll occasionally see it. I haven't personally seen an example that came up for sale, but I'll take Joe's word for it. He's definitely seen a lot more vintage guitars than I have. So people would go crazy over these at $799 because it's an artist limited edition guitar. It's something that everybody really likes because you got people like Jimmy Page who made these things famous as well. But it just seemed like they priced it so cheaply because the next Les Paul Custom that you can get is $679. For only $120 more, you get the yellowed over binding, the middle pickup, the artist association with the unique tuners. You get a hard shell case. It's just like a no-brainer. No wonder these things sell for so much on the used market. But in case you're wondering, are these still on Musician's Friend's website? At the time of recording, the listing looks a little bit not so good. Like it says null in the title, which normally means they're about sold out or they already have sold too many. But I mean, you're free to check it out. But as far as case candy, you get a picture of Joe right here with his Epiphone version and, having a COA. That's kind of cool on here. And of course, you get all your other Epiphone goodness. And for $100 more, now these ones I believe are sold out, you could go to Joe Bonamassa's website to get the vanity model, as he calls it. It has Joe Bonamassa inlaid on the fretboard instead of having these custom block inlays, and then you get like meet and greets with him. Doesn't include, concert tickets, but you can always purchase those separately. So, now that we've got all that out of the way, what do I think about this thing? I mean, it's very, very chunky. I'm not necessarily in love with the way that they've done the binding because instead of being more of like a yellowed over amber hue, it just looks straight up yellow, so that's a little bit cheesy in my opinion, but I mean, they were trying to give you that really dark aged version, and that's pretty much the simplest way that they could do that. So if you know what the real deal looks like, sure, it's a little bit more of a brighter yellow as compared to how some of these age. Like the body, okay, I'll give him to that. That's okay, but it really stands out on the neck, because normally guitars that make it to this stage of being so heavily yellowed, I mean, you got to remember, a vintage original, it's not just this area that's turned yellow, it's the yellow over the entire finish. So normally they get played so much that you actually have like some white binding showing through, because that's just the clear coat lacquer aging. Whereas on this, it looks to me like they might have just legitimately put yellow binding on it. I'm not sure. Speaking of the binding, I mean, they even gave you a yellow interior on the case. That's kind of cool. And it says Joe Bonamassa, Nerdville, CA. It's got that Fragile on the top and Epiphone. It's honestly a really nice feeling case. Usually these Epiphones get the Epilight cases, so a full-on hard shell case was definitely a nice surprise. But it certainly passes the vibe check. It's super heavy. The neck is actually surprisingly good. They advertise these as like a full 50s neck. Now, it's not like baseball bat thick if you're looking for like a perfect R7, but I have not actually had a vintage Les Paul Custom in my hand, so I don't know if that's apropos or not. I mean, you definitely have a lot taller fret wire than the fretless Wonders, but that's probably a good thing. So, without any further ado, I say it's time we throw this little buddy on the workbench and take an individual look at its parts and specs. Inside the Joe Bonamassa signature Epiphone Les Paul Custom, let's go ahead and take a look at this. So the only downside is this does not get Gibson pickups in it like some of these higher end Epiphones do. These are just Epiphone USA designed pickups. They call them the Epiphone Pro Buckers. So you have two number 2s, Pro Bucker 2, and then this is a Pro Bucker 3. Now I've actually heard pretty good things about this, and sometimes Epiphone pickups in their higher end guitars, they do actually sound halfway decent. So we'll give it a fair shot. We're not going to diss it, but it would have been nice if we would have had like Gibson 57 Classics in here or something, but that would have rose the price to $10.99, but judging by the used market, people probably would have paid it anyways. But inside here, we can see our bridge pickup cavity as our typical QR code, and you can see through to the mahogany body. Middle pickup route, nothing too fancy in here, but the neck pickup, that's where things get interesting. Yep, that has a factory long neck tenon. How nice is that? And we can't really see it because it's covered over in black paint, but this has a mahogany top. So the original Les Paul Customs, they didn't have a maple top. It was just all mahogany. That's what made it different from a Les Paul standard. So for a lot of people, in order to call a guitar a true Black Beauty, it has to have the mahogany cap and 3 pickups, in a traditional sense anyways. But let's go ahead and grab our pickup readings here. I get a bridge position of 8.58 k ohms, neck a little less hot at 7.9, then our middle position 4.16. So what that tells me is this should be a traditional layout, meaning bridge is just your bridge, neck is just your neck, but your middle position are these two in kind of like an out of phase tone. It's like having a single coil. I love it when it's like this. And that does indeed appear to be the case, because when you roll that off, everything is killed. So, yep, this is the version I like. Now, if you don't like it and you would prefer to have a blend switch, it's pretty easy to rewire these things. So you just put the middle pickup like on this one, so you can blend it in and out of that middle position. I mean, it's more versatile, but I just like the simplicity of a 3-way switch. That's just me, though. So our hardware here, we have the Epiphone style of an ABR1 bridge. And I say that because they give it the retaining wire, but it's like the same width of a Nashville style one, but the screws face this way like on a true ABR one. Then we've got a full weight tailpiece here that's in gold, and it also reads Epiphone, and it's one of their lock tone series. So those little tabs right there, they help that secure to the post. As far as the knobs themselves, they're the vintage style ones that you'd find on a Black Beauty. They even went as far as giving you the pointers that show you what number you're on, nicknamed thumb bleeders because back in the day they were very sharp and you would whoop, make your thumb bleed. But this output jack on the side, oh, that is tight. Like, it's so hard to get it in. Okay. But it comes out all right, so I guess if it had to be difficult putting it in one way, at least it's in, because then it's not going to fall out as easily. But you'll also notice this has the Era Correct plastic jack plate. That's a nice little touch. But this black finish looks great. Just dusted it off. Normally, you get fingerprints and all that. Now, it will show fingerprints once we start playing it, but this looks pretty nice. I've got to say, I am very impressed by this. I haven't demoed an Epiphone in a while, but this one, I can already say it feels better than the regular Epiphone Les Paul Custom that I unboxed earlier this year. Like that guitar, it was okay. It didn't really make me want to review it, but this one, you know, taking it straight out of the box, yeah. Even the setup on this straight out of the box, it wasn't all buzzy like sometimes it is, so that's saying a lot, especially coming from the Musician's Friend warehouse. Usually those require a little bit more setup work because they don't do anything to them. They just get the guitars in and then they sell them. But moving on from our straight mahogany body, we have a mahogany neck with a true ebony fretboard. 22 medium jumbo frets, I would guess. The inlays, they're acrylic, but I mean, what'd you really expect? It's an Epiphone. Now, you can see like some light tooling marks and some like glue or something. It's not the worst job we've ever seen on a fretboard, but you can see where some of the stain for the ebony wood kind of bled onto our binding right here. We have a nut width of 1.69 inches, which increases to 2.08 by the 12th. First fret neck depth measures 0.93 and beefs up to 0.99 by the 12th. As I was telling you, it's a rounded neck, but not overly chunky. Here it is at the 1st and 12th fret. You can kind of see what I'm saying. It's chunky, but still kind of flat. It's not quite the usual Epiphone D-shaped neck. It is quite comfortable. As far as the nut, it is made of the new bone material like the other stuff, but you've got a regular truss rod in here as you find on most of the Epiphones. You can see it poking out right there, and our mahogany neck. And here is our beautiful headstock, equally as yellowed over. It's the new Epiphone Kalamazoo style. It looks pretty darn good. And of course, our tuners. Now, his vintage original ones, I think it was more so like a pearloid material, or maybe actually real pearl. These look a bit dull, but it's something different. For me, it's all about the post. Do you see how wide those are? Those just look great for tuning stability. It really reminds me of what you'd find on like a really high-end arch top, like the Kluson Seal Fast style tuners. I mean, they're kind of similar to that. I mean, you've got a lot of room to grip and turn. They're not cold because they're not made of metal. I like them so far. I wish they would have been a little bit more pearlescent, but that's just me. I really want to find a vintage Gibson that has those stock. Joe has a cool guitar. Moving on to the backside here, our control cavity is kind of interesting. So they do indeed have 500K CTS pots with orange drop capacitors, just like Gibson USA products. Now it looks a little bit not quite the same, and I think it just comes down to they're using lesser quality wire than you're used to seeing on like a Gibson product. But at least you do have some sort of a form of shielded braided wire on here for your pickup, so that's kind of cool. But the nice thing about this not being a quick connect system is if you wanted to do that mod I was talking about earlier where you have a blending of the middle pickup, all you had to do, take this to like Guitar Center or any other tech and say, hey, I want this rewired like this. They're going to be able to do it. They won't have to swap anything, so that's nice. And your toggle switch looks like this. I don't see anything too funny going on here. Now, if we're going to get really, really nitpicky here, yeah, they drilled these screws a little bit crooked. Yeah, you find that on a lot of Epiphones. And you could say, like, right here, the black finish ran onto the binding just a tad. If I'm happy enough with the rest of everything that I've seen here, strap buttons in your usual locations here. And here's what the backside of the neck looks like. Completely black. Everything is gloss on this guitar. You have your handcrafted in China sticker and your QC check sticker, as well as your Epiphone 100% setup in the USA by number 11. And then our serial number here is kind of interesting. So it dates to 2020, the 11th month. So that means this thing roughly disappeared for, what, 9 months? So maybe this was stuck on that, like, cargo ship. Because maybe Musician's Friend just didn't get their last order, because it was my understanding they were done. We weren't waiting for more. They were just done, because I haven't seen these at other dealers. That's why people were paying premiums for them. I don't think the world will ever know, but if you've always wanted one of these things, go to Musician's Friend or Guitar Center right now and see if they still have them, because these are a great value so far that I see at $7.99. But let's take a look at these tuners real quick. I like the Epiphone logo on them, the E, and then you've got like a triangle. It looks like an anchor. And here's something you don't see on all of them. So there's a little bit of red blent in here. Maybe that's what I'm remembering, not necessarily pearlescent. I mean, it's been, what, 5 months since I've watched that video. But some of these will get a little bit of a red tint to them, which I think just makes it look cool. Our last spec to capture is the weight. Just under 9 pounds, 8 pounds, 14.1 ounces. It feels a lot heavier than that though, so it must be body heavy, because normally when the weight distribution is like all in the body, it feels really heavy. But let's go ahead, plug this thing in and see if it's worth the price. So far, the looks are worth the price alone and getting a case, but we gotta put it through all its paces. All right, let's go ahead and run through the tones of this, starting with our neck pickup here. That was nice and juicy. That's nice. It's a very articulate pickup. It's not muddy if you were worried about that. I'll switch over to that bridge. I think that needs raised up just a hair. Now let's give that a try. Real bridge pickup. They're nice pickups, not anything crazily special, but you could definitely color them with different amps, different tones from pedals. It would be an alright guitar, I would say. Raising that was definitely the right decision for a bit more bite. Now let's try that middle position, the in-between of these guys. It sounds nice, but now that the bridge is so high up, it doesn't quite get that single coil clarity I was thinking of. With that lower down a little bit more. Okay, so decent clean tones. Nothing crazy and out there, but good enough to get you going. Now let's try some distortion. I'd say it sounds pretty good with some distortion. I had to mess with my amp a little bit to give it a little bit more depth. It's really that bridge that comes to life, but the neck isn't too muddy either. That middle position, I don't really know what you'd use that for in distorted land, but we could try. Now that we know all about the Epiphone Les Paul Custom Joe Bonamassa outfit, what are my final thoughts on this thing? Now, after sitting down and playing it, that's when all the, okay, it's an Epiphone thing started to come in. The next thing I really hope Epiphone does is upgrade their fret wire, because it always feels kind of scratchy. You hear that? Now, you're going to have a little bit of that on even higher end guitars, but it just doesn't quite feel polished enough. And I'm not sure if it's just the material they make it out of or if they just don't do the full polish job because they're trying to save some money. That's the first thing that I always notice on Epiphones. And yeah, there was a little bit of fret buzzing. And a couple of mystery buzzes on the saddles or somewhere down here that you have to live with. So, I mean, is it a 100% perfect guitar? No, but look at this thing. It looks absolutely fantastic, and that's why people are willing to pay a premium for these things. And despite not having Gibson pickups in here or some other boutique brand, they sounded okay for the price point. You can definitely upgrade it if you want to. I mean, that's what's nice about the CTS pots on top of that. You've got some options there if you so desire. But I think if you were to plug this into a Kemper, you'd be plenty happier. You know, any type of amp simulator or just whatever amps you have, as long as you have a quality amp, you're not going to have a hard time with this. I was just going through my Deluxe Reverb, which is more so a clean amp. Now, as far as the tuners, now that I've used them a little bit more, I'm not as big of a fan of them because think of them like a Kluson style tuner, because that's pretty much the exact same material that they're using right here. But instead of having those nice rounded edges, they're a little bit sharper and it's blockier. I mean, it makes sense that you have a good amount of area to grip it right here, because I like to grip the Kluson tuners kind of like on the edges, and this one just not quite as comfortable, so I had to adjust how I was doing that. But they sure do look cool, right? So, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about the Epiphone Joe Bonamassa 3-pickup signature Black Beauty. It's an awesome guitar. It looks great. It sounds okay. But in your hands, it might be awesome. I would suggest one of these. I think it is a good value for the money. Alright, Troglodytes, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.